Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss The Strangers, Chapter 2, starring Madeline Pesh, Gabriel Basso, Emma Horvath, forgive me if I said that wrong, and Froy Gutierrez, directed by Rennie Harlan. Now, before I get into this, welcome back to The Strangers after I first reviewed Pray at Night leading up to that, and then I went back to Chapter 1, and when I reviewed that a couple of years back. But will it be as good or bad as before? Let's find out. Let's get into the movie. We start minutes after The Strangers Chapter 1 ended, as it's still 2023, and Maya, returned by Madeline Petch, is in the hospital, and she wakes up asking about her fiance Ryan, returned briefly by Froy Gutierrez when he died at the end of the last movie. And Maya explains to the sheriff and deputy about how the strangers liked killing Ryan and trying to terrorize Maya, and she brings up how they asked about a woman named Tamara, and Maya wonders who the fuck is Tamara, as they don't have an answer as to it while she rests at the hospital, and we flash back to one of the strangers, Dollface, and Scarecrow as kids growing up with a bully named Tamara at school, which feels completely unnecessary. And it'll come back again and again, and I absolutely hate these fucking characters, as the flashbacks were completely unnecessary, as I didn't need to know who these fucking strangers are, and importantly, I don't need the 3 parts of having to deal with this goddamn story to begin with. Maya wakes up at the hospital and gets a message from her friend slash sister Debbie, as I don't get the relationship there, and I don't remember the relationships between the characters, nor do I give a shit, as the strangers try to attack Maya at the hospital in this prolonged sequence, as it felt endless while the shots in this scenes annoyed the hell out of me, and as does the cinematography, which looks horrible. And sometimes the editing was fucking choppy as hell, as this movie felt endless. Despite this is a 90-minute movie, the scares felt very cheap, like I was never scared once in this movie. Not once. While on the run from the strangers, Maya hides in a dead body in the autopsy room. Where does she end up? With her dead fiance Ryan, which feels way too fucking convenient. And I kept being distracted by Maya's fingernails being gold while a hospital worker is killed by the Scarecrow. And for what little deaths there are in this movie, I didn't care for any of the deaths. Because, like I said, I hate these fucking characters. As eventually Maya gets out of the hospital and runs in the forest, tries to hide from the strangers, and gets to a barn with an obnoxious lady saying the cops won't help them out until she gets killed, and continues to run away from the strangers by hiding in a horse farm. And I'm 30 minutes into the movie, and I'm like, and I can't help but fall asleep on my first viewing, as it was a doozy to get through, and I can't believe I watched this twice for this review. And if I were any of you, I wouldn't reward the makers with your money. Just don't do it by seeing this piece of shit movie. Maya eventually escapes the horse barn and stabs one of the strangers in the stomach and runs to the restroom and almost gets killed by Scarecrow, but luckily she escapes and continues to run in the forest and encounters a couple of women in the truck as one is a military woman named Shelley, and eventually pick up Gregory. And Wayne and Maya can't trust anyone whatsoever. Even these people, as they could be fucking murderers, or the strangers that's looking for her, as she does jump out of their car. And how the fuck do they know it's their suspect? As we don't know who the fuck these people are, makes me think, yep, they're the strangers. And this movie is just boring the crap out of me. Maya stitches herself, and stitches are painful, but am I supposed to care? Because I truly don't. As the next day comes, and she's walking around the forest and makes a fire while the strangers look at her and sense, where's she at? And send out a giant warthog to go after her and attack her. And this piece of CGI looks awful. Just, ugh! The giant warthog attacking her in the leg while she's bruised. And this is not the Strangers movie I remember, as they were murderers, but they're not farmers, nor are they sending out any animals to attack a human being, as that was a choice I couldn't go with, while it steps on and attacks her like the bear did to Leonardo DiCaprio in The Revenant, as this was a piss poor choice from director Renny Harlin, as it goes on for a while until he beats its ass with a stick with fire and stabs it to death. As that was so stupid, as this is such a stupid movie that I almost wanted to walk out on. But I'm not pulling off another Screamers at this point, so I stuck around this whole fucking movie, but unfortunately. And it's not as worse as Screamers, in my opinion, after killing the warthog. Maya walks away as one of the strangers finds the scene and thinks about playing with the scarecrow as a kid, with the warthog babies, until Tamara comes by to upset her by faking a fall on her wrist and upsets her as she kills an innocent mouse and by cracking its neck. And I'm thinking, what the fuck did that mouse do to deserve that death? But remember, serial killers use that technique on defenseless animals as a start, but they kill people while the sheriff and the deputy continuously sit in the diner while they're supposed to be looking for Maya, which bothered me so bad as Maya gets to an abandoned house they stayed in chapter 1, all bandaged up, as she goes inside the house to see what ended up happening to them as the time and gets some food and water in her system and grabs a knife for her safety and picks up a jacket at this point. And I'm just bored, as this is when I'm briefly falling asleep in the theater, as this is a boring film. Maya finds someone from Internal Affairs and asks him to get her the fuck out of here, and he ends up getting killed by one of the strangers, and he ends up at the house of the people who tried to save her earlier in the film. And she wakes up and sees she's been stitched up and protected by the saviors, and encounters Gregory as he comes off like an asshole to Maya to begin with, and scares the shit out of her while acting like an arrogant prick. And Maya goes on back to her room as a request by Shelley, while we get an EMT driver getting some gasoline, and it's the same place as in chapter 1. And the scene is unnecessary, and the acting in this scene is just horrendous. Maya gets her phone back while Gregory walks into her room and continues to make her uncomfortable because she knows it's Scarecrow, it's under the mask, and she asks him why, as he does say, does there have to be a why? Until the others like Annie come in and yells at him for making Maya uncomfortable, as Maya puts the drawer in front of the door and sees Gregory leaving the house, and Maya tries to text Debbie, but it won't go through, as she's stuck with, and Pinup, I guess is the third stranger, suddenly attacks Maya, as does Dollface, and she tries to get out, and she sees the blue sirens like she's been saved, but she can't get out and has no cell phone service, and gets out of the room with nobody trying to attack her. And the saviors get sliced in the throat while the strangers are outside, and she tries to get away, but I was checked out of this movie at this point. Maya encounters one of the strangers and stabs her in the head and dies in... I thought, oh, thank God, she got killed, and it took her long enough as she drives the EMT truck as the strangers continuously attack, and Dollface is killed by a freak accident and of Maya flipping the truck over, as she survives and crawls and walks alive and sees Dollface is dead and almost reveals her face, and like, do I like this? But no, but they come by quicker than I thought they would. She runs out of there, and we get Scarecrow as he reveals her mask, upset and wanting vengeance amongst Maya, as we see them as kids killing Tamara, and credits roll to a teaser of The Strangers Chapter 3, and I'm not looking forward to that, as I was glad once this movie was over, because I have to wait another couple of years to flip me upside down and get another $20 out of me. This is how bad into the movie is this made me feel. And it reminds me of going back to Fantastic Beasts, where they just flip me upside down and grab another $20. But how bad did it make me feel? Let's talk about it. And a rating. I'll give this movie a 1.5 out of 10. Worse than the previous movie in the Strangers franchise. as this was a doozy to get through, and the CGI on that warthog looked awful, as having one in the movie is questionable to begin with, as the characters are as worse as before. Like, I hate all of them, and even Maya, who came off when she started in chapter 1 to even worse than she started when the movie was over. And I, with the audience member, was like, oh, thank God there's no more until another couple of years when chapter 3 comes out. And I'm not looking forward to that either. The backstory is absolutely unnecessary, as we don't need to know any of these fucking strangers as adults nor as kids, as that bothered me throughout, as despite this was a 90-minute movie, it was endless. And the cinematography is the way it was, and the way it was shot was annoyed the hell out of me because it's horrible. And sometimes the editing was just fucking choppy to death, as does the story ever end in one story, as that also bothered me, as well as the scares felt cheap, as I never got scared once. It was once in this movie, not once in the movie, because it smells like garbage. I kept falling asleep during the movie on my first viewing because, like I said, it was a doozy to sit through twice for this review, and it's a strong non-recommendation for the movie for what little the deaths did, and this did nothing for me to enjoy the movie, as this is one of the worst movies I've seen this year. And how much worse can this series get with chapter 3? I'll find out when I get there, but in the meantime, do not reward the makers with this piece of shit movie with your money. Just don't fucking do it. As this was reminding me of Fantastic Beasts, where they just flip me upside down and grab another $20 out of my wallet. This is what this feels like to me. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me for this and for coming back to this series. And I will be back maybe in a couple of years when chapter 3 comes out. But until then, because I'm here.